Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to each of you, those of you here in the council chambers, those that watch by TV. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you would stand, we'll have our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, we give you great thanks for the day and for all the many blessings that you have caused to happen to each one of us today. We ask a special blessing tonight upon those in our community that are sick and confined to nursing homes. Especially, Heavenly Father, we pray that you'd be with the Vice Mayor tonight, that you would strengthen his family as they go through a tumultuous time of hospitalization. We just ask that you would be near and dear to them and that you would restore him to health as only you can. We ask that you would grant this council just a portion of your wisdom as we deliberate the issues of our city. And we pray, Lord, that the decisions we make here tonight will be in the best interest of those that we serve. We make our prayer in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We are indeed privileged here tonight, not only this council, those of you that watch by television and those of you that are in the council chambers, to have our Senator Miller, with us tonight. Before I ask John to go to the podium, let me just say to the council and to the folks, citizens of this city, that our representative is one of those who is truly a representative. I have never once called John Miller that the phone call has not been returned promptly, either by he or one of his staff. I have not called his cell phone when he has not answered. He is currently working on several projects in the city of Poquoson, and it's been a long time since we've had that kind of representation, in my opinion, at the state level. So, John, I want to thank you for all that you do for this city. I know those folks in Newport News are delighted that you represent them as well. We wish you well in this session, a hard session, but we know that you'll keep us on top of what's going on, just as you always have, and we are very, very thankful that you're our representative, and we're also thankful that you're here tonight, and the podium is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you so much, Gordon, for those very kind words. I appreciate it. I just don't want to trespass too heavily on your time, but I do want to take a couple minutes to talk about the upcoming session of the General Assembly, which will convene at noon on Wednesday. I know you all are struggling with your budget and how you're going to meet the services that your citizens demand, and I think that job will be even harder after we finish our work in 60 or more days when we finally finalize the budget. But your citizens ought to know that the decisions that are made in Richmond have a real impact in Poquoson and the localities throughout Virginia. They may not realize that 50 cents of every dollar that is collected in taxes in Richmond comes back to localities to help fund K through 12, public safety, mental health. 50 cents on every dollar goes back to localities. And so when we make a cut, you all feel it down here, you can feel the pain. And this is a particularly, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, difficult session. Let me just tell you where we are. In the current biennium, which ends at the end of June, the budget was $77 billion. And over the past 18 months, the governor and the General Assembly have cut out $7 billion so far. There are more cuts that need to be made, but 10% of the budget has gone. And we're in now to people and programs. Looking at the next biennium, we still need to cut in the next 2 years $4 to $6 billion more in the next 2 years. So these are going to be very, very difficult, very controversial, and very deep cuts to virtually all services of government. We now have to redefine how government's going to work in the next few years because of the economy that we're in. What can we afford to do, and what services can we no longer afford to give our citizens? So I am hoping that we can protect education as much as possible. Poquoson has a wonderful education system, one that you're very proud of and should be. And I'm hoping that if we make cuts, and there will be cuts to education, but I'm hoping they will be minimal, that they won't affect what's going on in the classroom, and that they won't be permanent. and Superintendent Parrish and I have had several discussions on how best to address the cuts that are coming to K through 12. And I'm hoping that we would be able to just give her a figure and say, this is the number we're short, and you come up with the cuts, because it's better, I think, that folks on the local level know how best to make those decisions rather than us imposing them from Richmond. But it's going to be difficult. And I need your help and the help of all your citizens to try and let me know what areas of the budget we should protect and what services that they think we no longer need to provide. So I would just encourage all citizens to call or email or write me during the next 60 days as this budget process goes forward and give me your best thinking as to where we can make cuts in the state budget and what areas we really ought to fight to protect as much as possible. We will balance the budget. We have to under the Constitution. We will do it without a tax increase, so that means just tightening the belt even more than we have in the past. But I think in times like this, we need the thinking of all the citizens. And I just again reiterate that if folks have ideas as to what direction we should go, that they call me or write me and let me know. And I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to.
Senator, thank you so much for being here, and we know you came from Richmond to attend this meeting to make those few comments. So, John, we're very appreciative.
Thank you.
And we will, as a council, prepare a package, and we'll put it together quickly and get it in your hands.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, John.
Council, thank you.
Have a safe trip back to Richmond. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our audience of visitors. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address council at this time on any issue, we'd be delighted to hear from you now. Anyone? All righty. We'll move past that and move to the approval of minutes. We have two sessions. We can take those individually, please.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion we adopt the minutes of the City Council regular meeting on December 14, 2009.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded. We adopt our regular session minutes from December the 14th, 2009. Any concerns, comments, questions regarding those minutes? If not, Ms. Wiggins, please.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
And Mayor Helson.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And the special session?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the special session December 21 minutes.
Okay.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded. We adopt the special session minutes as well. Any concerns, comments regarding those? Okay. Ms. Wiggins, please.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Mayor Helson.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
All right, thank you, Judy. We'll move on to item F. We have one public hearing. It is an ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds for construction of a new sewer pump station. Randy, any comments prior to?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Council members will recall in early fall we had a discussion regarding our capacity issues at Pump Station 2. And at that time, the council conferred with and formalized the administrative moratorium we put in place. Council exhorted us to work with the development community, which we have done, although not in the form of binding commitments for financing, but also exhorted us at the same time to continue to move forward and bring this item because it's important and needs to be done. We have done that. We have prepared this project to the extent that we're ready to go. We have issued the financing RFP, and we'll have folks that will speak to that in a moment. But I want to tell you that the development community, while unable to make firm financing commitments, are very much interested in this, and I do expect that with these repairs, which if you approve this today, should be online by midsummer, some of them have already indicated to me an intent to move forward in the next 12 months with some of the projects that they have pending. So it is timely for them. We also have a number of small projects that folks are waiting anxiously to hear what your decision is here tonight. You recall Kyle from Davenport. He made a presentation to you recently. The gentleman sitting immediately in front of him is Dan Siegel from Sam Zenderson, who is our bond counsel and things like this. and ably assisted by Teresa as well. One of you gentlemen want to make a brief presentation on the context of the financing prior to the public hearing? Which has got to be the most favorable deal I have ever heard of. I commend you both for that.
We'll be very brief because it's all, I think, all good news. Effectively, what we've done, what we're here tonight, is to present and ask your approval for the sewer financing. We've gone out to the banks, we've bid this out, and what we got back in, our best bid was from Carter Bank, which is the same bank that's done, I think, our past two financings. They've just gotten comfortable with the city and its credit, kind of your general finances, which is good because when Carter Bank bids, which they don't always bid on financings, they are typically very aggressive. So what we got back in is a 5-year fixed rate. It'll be interest only, and it is prepayable at any time, in part or in whole, with no penalty. So basically what that gives you is complete flexibility for 5 years as some of these development fees come in. Maybe it's next year, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years from now. As those come in, you can pay down all of it, you can pay down a portion of it, with lots of flexibility there. The interest rate is at 2.75%, so you're below 3% considerably. That's not going to change over the 5-year term. And in addition, just some nice kind of sweeteners. Carter Bank doesn't require any kind of outside bank counsel review, no closing costs. It's a very straightforward process, and something we think there's a lot of positives to. So tonight you're holding a public hearing. We're asking for your approval of, I guess, the bond ordinance. We're happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I don't have any questions. Just say wow. Any questions?
Dan may have something he'd like to say.
Sure, Stan. Anything? Go ahead.
I'll be a lot shorter, because you already heard the great news. You have the ordinance in front of you. It's very similar to what we've done in the past, and it does require, your action tonight, but we'll be able to close this quickly anytime during the month. And I think we're in pretty good shape. And I'm like Kyle. I'm just delighted that that Carter Bank is very comfortable with the city's credit. It's definitely shows a lot of confidence in what the council's been doing, what the city management has been doing, and having the city in good shape even in this crisis. So it's a great deal. 2 3/4, 5 years.
And you folks are great as well. And were there any questions of Stan or Kyle before we move forward?
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's then open the public hearing and see if there's anyone in our audience that would like to address this issue. Anyone have anything at all to say regarding the ordinance? Okay, if not, we will close the public hearing. If someone will move adoption, we'll move on.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance authorizing the issuance of up to $600,000 principal amount on general obligation bonds of the city of Poquoson.
Second. Second.
Okay, that's good. Okay, we have a motion made and second that we adopt the ordinance. Any concerns or comments? Any questions?
There won't be a second reading on this, is that correct?
You can adopt it as an emergency measure if you like.
You want us to add that?
I would like to do that as an emergency measure.
Perry, will you second? Is okay?
I will second as amended, sir.
Okay, all right. Ms. Liggins, please.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
And Mayor Helson.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to new business. First item is a resolution designating co-signatories on city checks and warrants. Randy?
Mr. Mayor, this is an item that simply designates our new treasurer, Mr. Clark, as an appropriate signator for city checks. Otherwise, it's a housekeeping matter.
Okay. Anyone prepared with a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution designating the city manager, assistant city manager, treasurer, or deputy treasurer as co-signatories on all city checks.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made and second that we adopt the resolution. Any questions, any concerns, any comments? If not, Judy, please.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
And Mayor Helson.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to item 2. It's an ordinance making additional appropriations for FY 2010. Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Mr. Mayor, the most significant of these items, two of which you heard at a previous meeting whereby we accepted the grant, now we're asking you to appropriate it. In the future, we'll combine that into a single ordinance so as to reduce the repetitive items on future agendas. Beyond that, the significant issues pertain to the carryover of some grant funding for the outdoor classroom for the schools and the carryover of the remaining balance for the elementary school project for the closeout expenses pertaining to that.
Okay?
Mayor, make a motion, we adopt an ordinance making additional appropriations and reappropriations for fiscal year 2009,
All right, sir.
2010.
Thank you. Second. Okay, we have a motion made and second that we adopt the ordinance. Any concerns, any comments, any questions? No? Judy, please.
Councilman Hunt?
Aye.
Councilman Krieger?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
Councilman Freeman?
Aye.
Mayor Helsel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
All right, thank you, Judy. Let's move on to item 3. It's an ordinance amending Section 2-95 of the City Code. The subject is required votes for council actions. Randy?
Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this proposed ordinance is to reconcile language disparity between the city's charter and this parent ordinance. This is the issue that the council faced in December and the subsequent need to have a special meeting to ratify the votes of the first December meeting. Mr. Moore was the primary author, but I think the wording stands on its own. Councilwoman Crawford may have a proposed amendment she and I discussed earlier today.
Okay, Tracy?
I was just concerned, I'm good with, I like the idea of reconciling the books and making it nice and neat, but I was concerned that just saying a simple majority would work to vote on anything. I think if there's going to be anything that requires a vote, having 4 people is a good idea to say yes. For example, when I wasn't here, that made 3 people, there were 3 of you taking votes. So the majority would be 2 people could vote on something and it would pass. And I just think that would be setting us up for just potential problems. So I think if we just removed the second sentence would be a good idea.
I guess I'm kind of lost.
Because I don't know what other questions there would be that we would need to be voted on. If there's anything that needs to be voted on, I think it deserves 4 votes to pass.
All right, right now, the ordinance, as I read it, says for us to pass a law or for us to do a resolution, that it takes the affirmative vote of 4 members of council.
There's a little bit of a conflict in the charter. Under Article 4, Section 5, it says a majority is a quorum. Well, normally if you have a quorum, then you can conduct business and the majority of the quorum votes. Okay. Section 7 says that ordinances and resolutions require 4 affirmative votes. So when I told you at that meeting that we didn't have to have 4 people, I was relying on this section that I knew we had a quorum and we had majority of people voting. So I misinformed you. That's why we went back and did the other session. But all we were trying to do was make 2-95 consistent with our charter. That's all.
And that's what this does, right?
Well, all of the questions before the city council, we almost never do anything except by ordinance or resolution.
Correct.
But there could be, something that we did that didn't require an ordinance or resolution, and that would only require a majority of the quorum present and voting.
Minutes. And that's what I think may just be putting us into hot water.
Minutes is Judy just said, minutes is a typical example.
The only thing I could think of is appointments to school boards or commissions and things like that.
Things we don't have to do
That's it.
resolutions or ordinances for.
Yeah, minutes and that.
This brings us in line. I'm all right.
Well, actually, isn't an appointment, isn't that done on a resolution?
No.
Appointments are resolutions. Yes,
Is it?
they are. This second sentence is what's in your code already. And that's what's always been in there, that decisions of council, it said all questions before council was by a majority of those present. That's what's there now.
Right.
So by adding the ordinances and resolution part to the code to reflect the charter, it's bringing that in line. But then it leaves any other discussion you have that you just vote on, that
Right.
we don't have any resolution.
Like postponing something off the
Yes.
agenda.
Yes.
They could do that with a simple majority of those present. You could do approval of the minutes with a simple majority of those present. So,
Well, could you make an appointment?
No,
that's
that's
that's a
resolution.
There's no real decisions made.
right, you wouldn't do any ordinance, which is law, or resolutions, which resolution is, filling a board seat or something like that. But it does allow you to continue on and hold the meeting so that our
But it would
absence
also-
doesn't interrupt their ability to come and make their presentation.
I guess I'm just trying to think of a problem where I would want more than just a quorum to be here to hear everything. When there has to be first and second hearings, public hearings about stuff, could that happen with a quorum then?
You could do the public hearing.
No.
You could do the public hearing with a quorum present.
But you couldn't adopt the ordinance.
Correct.
Could postpone.
You would normally would postpone it, I think is what we would typically do.
I'm fine.
We would ask for it to be postponed until, and we've done that over the years. We want as many members of council here, especially on those kinds of issues, that we can, and we want to make sure we're carrying on the business of the city in a timely manner as well. But I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I'm all right with this.
We don't want that so tight that we can't operate.
Right.
So,
All right.
unless there's additional concerns, if we can get a motion, move on.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the city of Poquoson, Virginia by revising section 295 pertaining to required votes for council actions.
Got a second?
Second.
All right. Any questions, any more comments? Okay, Judy, please.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
And Mayor Helsel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to item 4 on the new business, and the last item on the new business, preliminary drainage analysis for Poquoson Shores subdivision. Randy?
Mr. Mayor, sometime in the first week or so of November, several members of City Council, along with members of City staff, met with residents of the Poquoson Shores subdivision to discuss drainage issues, both tidal and storm drainage issues. And as a follow-up to that meeting, we committed as staff, along with council members that were there, to study this in detail and report back to the council our findings and recommendations. The members of the community there received copies of the first version of this preliminary drainage analysis sometime towards the middle of December, along with an indication that we would be presenting this to you here this evening. Mr. Blimo is going to summarize this briefly for you, but I would tell you that the costs associated with the recommendations are part of the recommended CIP for next year, which is moving its way towards the council's consideration at your next meeting. Source of the funds is some money coming from VDOT, so that's not a local tax thing. So if, absent any other change, if the council were to agree to that, the money would be in place next fiscal year to make these repairs. Mr. Blimo?
Evening, Mayor Helsel.
Hey, Jeff.
Honorable members of council. As the manager said, we looked at the Poquoson Shores subdivision. I have a slide up there. Basically, what we did was look at the area as a whole, tried to determine what the problems were, if there were, and whether the flooding was caused by either rain, precipitation, or tidal flooding. We tried to see if there were any impediments in the way to prevent us from fixing the problem, and then tried to come up with some solutions that would be practical. And in each of the areas, we looked at each one separately, came up with some solutions, and as the manager said, the total project cost estimated without contingencies is about a little over $51,000 for solving or minimizing the flooding in all those areas. That we looked both at tidal flooding and at precipitation flooding. And if you'd like any more information about any specific area, I'd be happy to go over those with you. They're delineated there on the chart.
So, sure, yeah. So basically, I guess what I'm hearing you saying, maybe my simple explanation is not right, let me know. But it sounds to me like the installation of several flapper valves at the outfall, except for a peak tide above a certain level, this will give us a 90% chance that we're going to stop that flooding, assuming a check valve doesn't fail or this or that.
Correct.
Maintenance on these check valves should be minimal. They appear, and do they have a good running history as far as?
They've been used for years, eons. It's basically a simple, we're not looking at the Redgate super valves that are expensive and do have problems. These are just basically a little cap on the end of the pipe. When the water builds up on one side, it flows out. They're not perfect. When the tide comes up, the flapper is pushed against the pipe, and they may leak a little bit, but at least it's going to slow down considerably any tidal flooding. Now, if we do have very large storms, like nor'easters, a big nor'easter that lasts for several days, then there are limitations. The ideal way is to fix this, probably, is to raise the roads to at least a minimum elevation of 4.5 feet. That's not really practical because of cost, and also because what it would do to the neighborhood. So this is a minimalist approach to minimize or potentially eliminate, for most storms, the flooding area problems. Some of the flooding has been caused in some of those areas by rainfall, precipitation, and that's because the rain hits the road, gets off the road, doesn't have any place to go. So what we're going to do there is grade ditches, put in culverts in people's driveways, and grade that out. That should take care of that problem, or minimize it anyways.
I guess the one thing that we saw down there, and I guess it's in this area number
7.
7.
Right.
I guess there was some discussion about the outfall ditch, and really that outfall ditch that kind of comes behind 6 and 7.
Yes, sir.
That is basically an earthen ditch.
That's a problematic ditch. I worked a problem like that about 15, 20 years ago in Virginia Beach. I don't think we want to do that. What you could do is you could dike off that ditch and then build a little pump station, and when it rains, pump the water out of there. That's really an awful expensive approach and not a good idea. What we did is looked at that, and the pipe that goes from Sandy Bay to that ditch now is half full of sand. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because that ditch has come up. However, we looked at it, and the elevation of the outfall of that pipe doesn't need to be as low as it is. It can be brought up a foot or two, and therefore the water would be able to get through it, and it wouldn't be plugged up. So, and in that area, I think I suggested putting in a ditch, and one of the problems there is that's the most of all those the most sophisticated type approach, because the water also ponds on the opposite side of the street. So we're going to have to bring the water from the northeast side of the street across the street. What we're going to do there is a little drainage ditch underneath the road with a grate on top, so that as you're driving across it, you would know it, but the water is flowing underneath the road. And then it would flow into the ditch on the southwest side, and that whole ditch would be at a higher elevation than the existing pipe. In fact, we'd even leave the existing pipe in. There's no need to take it out. Just leave it in.
Just put one on top of it.
Yes, sir.
And you're thinking that will stabilize the banks of that? Because it seemed like it was...
We'll have to stabilize a little the banks at the outfall of that. But it's not shown very well on this slide. If you look at the northeast corner, where that long ditch cuts out into the river, there is a monstrous sandbar, mm-hmm. and it goes at least halfway across the river. And due to tidal actions, trying to keep the mouth of that little inlet, the ditch, open is problematic. because of that sandbar. You know, our guys have cleaned it out several times. So that's why we say, well, just use the ditch that it's there, and then just raise the elevation of the outfall pipe that's servicing that area 7.
Okay, so you're saying that, okay, that will alleviate the constant filling with sand of the outfall?
Correct.
Okay, all right, now I understand. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Jeff, when you talked about subcatchment 7, you made reference to Hopkins Court and Oxford Mews, and you said a better way, but requiring slightly more maintenance would be put a 12-foot wide by 4 foot. Would that work in Oxford Mews and Hopkins Court also?
Hopkins Court and Oxford Mews have sort of that, but I think the problem there is that when we get a real fast storm, what we call something other than a typical type 2 storm, a real fast storm, a lot of water comes off of the whole area around there, and it tends to flood the street. And in this case, I've proposed, like I say, a little ditch with a grate covering it so you wouldn't drive over it, wouldn't notice it. In there, the water floods up so high that would be problematic. However, I think a lot of the problem for both those Oxford Mews and Hopkins Court has been resolved because we have, since those storms where we had a lot of flooding there, we've looked at it, and there's a box. I can't show you on that chart. There's a box along Little Florida Road underground that had some debris in it and was preventing water flowing out of there. It still may flood a little bit, but the water, the length of time that it's flooded should be a lot less than it used to be. Because now, anytime we get a large storm, anytime a large storm is forecast, we go there and we make sure that's cleaned out, so that, you know.
Talking about Little Florida.
That's good news.
Pardon me?
Yeah, no,
It's under Little
and
Florida.
it was a
The little box.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And we would do that also with the flat valves here. Anytime a storm is coming, we would check to make sure that a 2x4 or something hasn't floated in and is holding one open.
If I could add too, Mr. Mayor, at your planned hearing at your next meeting on the capital improvements plan, we've got Ellen has been working with Jeff and others on a drainage plan to improve the area that you're talking about, Ms. Trigger, and we'll present that for funding in the same time period from the same source, that we think we can make an even bigger dent in that flooding issue in those neighborhoods as well, or those streets.
Okay.
Thanks.
Jeff, let me say something.
Yes, ma'am.
To Randy and to you and anybody else that's had anything to do with this study. This is as clean and as thorough as I've ever seen it done. This is absolutely.
Wish I could have done a
And
better
then
job
the
on
speed,
it.
and the you know, the speed that was brought to council, back to council, and the fact that we've notified all of those homeowners in a timely manner, I just think is phenomenal, and I appreciate it. I appreciate
Happy to
it.
do it.
Okay, anybody got any other questions?
Do we need to do anything?
No, sir.
This is just informing us.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
Also, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
when we finally get this done, I think maybe a little bit possible offering the residents a little bit of training on how to keep those valves open and operating and stuff. Seemed like there was a good bit of interest in that kind of thing when we were down there walking around, and I think probably we can develop a good bit of self-help in this area that may help the city a lot.
We'll be happy to do that.
And I'd like to add in too, I don't begrudge doing this at all. I think it needs to be done, but we have other sections of town as well that need some help, and I just don't want to forget that Poquoson Avenue, just past Bunting all the time, and down North Blossom floods all the time. The new, I don't even know what it's called, behind the middle school, if you go down Poplar and off to the right, I think they've been having problems. So I just want to make sure that we do take care of everybody, not just this one subdivision. But I think this is you've done a good job, and they need some help.
Okay, thanks, sir. All right, let's move on to comments of Mr. Wheeler.
I only have two things to bring to your attention specifically. First is just a reminder that the Statement of Economic Interest and Financial Disclosure forms are due by the 15th. And also, I just wanted to make you and members of the public aware that we are working towards a new round of elevation grants for homes that want to elevate and get out of the way, hopefully, of future tidal flooding. There are a couple of things to point out. First, we're moving, the first deadline we have is a pre-application deadline of the 22nd of January. We have approximately 100 homeowners who have expressed an interest to participate in that program. We plan on making application for each of those 100. In addition, if there are persons out there that have not yet indicated to us an interest in that program, it's definitely not too late. So they can call our office at 868-3000 and let us know, and we'll add them to the list. We'll take them, obviously up to the last moment, but we would prefer the sooner the better if you could contact us and let us know. Another thing which is significantly different, though, just so that everyone is clear with what we see at this point, is that with the previous elevation grant, there was 75% money available from the federal government, 20% money available from the state government, and the city of Poquoson participated 5% in most cases. In this case, there has been no money designated by the state government, and as the council is very aware, the city's finances are such that there is no readily available pot for us to participate financially. So we're moving forward, and folks should move forward with the expectation that they may have a cash match responsibility of up to 25% if they are included in the grant program. I realize it's significantly different, but that's how it is moving forward. There may be one or two or three homes that may qualify for a different kind of grant program that has a more favorable match, but as a general statement, that's the rules of the road as we see it for the grant program. If the council is desirous, if you're generally supportive, we don't need a vote this evening, but if I'm assuming that you would like us to move forward with this program, we will be back at your next meeting asking you for an appropriation out of your contingency reserve for staffing support to get the full grant package out in the month of February and March. This is really a 30-plus hour a week job by somebody who's dedicated to it. The level of the sheer numbers of potential participants necessitate that, and we want to do a good job for them.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Kerry, any comments?
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay, Frank?
Yeah, two things, Mr. Mayor, and I guess one goes back to last year's budget discussions, and I think it was Tom and Reed mentioned when we divvy up the cost to the York County Sheriff's Department and the court system, I think it was based on an old proportion of population. And he recommended that we go forward this year and maybe talk to the administrator from York County and see whether he'd be willing to look at the population's changes since we agreed to the original formula or whatever. And I know that York County's already taken a 20% cut in their Sheriff Department court cost. It's probably going to grow more with the coming session of the General Assembly. So it might be, they might not listen to us as far as our request goes to, change our share, but it's worth looking at, I think, from the city manager standpoint. The only thing I'm concerned about is our old teen center. It was, condemned back after Hurricane Isabel and made unusable by, the public or whatever else. And now I'm finding out that it's being used on occasions for rehearsal by the Poquoson Island players. I know they were storing stuff in there, and that was their original intent. But I think little by little they're using that more for rehearsals. And I'm just worried about the after effects of residue of asbestos or whatever else that may be still in the building, and having us as the owner of the facility still and leasing it out to somebody. I know, we pay electricity and heat and those kind of things, but we do that for a lot of other civic organizations in town. But it's just a health concern that I'm worried about.
Sure.
And that's it, sir.
Any comment to that?
I will check back on the teen center on your concern, Mr. Krieger. With respect to the other, one of the first conversations that I had not long after becoming city manager was with the York County Administrator with regard to the need, what I perceived and the council perceived as a need to update that formula periodically. It was a proportional formula based on the population of a ratio which no longer matches our two communities. And what the administrator and I discussed was the concept of each decade, when the U.S. Census is completed, that we would use that as a foundation for discussion and see if we could not update on a every 10-year basis, that based on the best information that we get. And certainly he couldn't commit his board, but he thought that that was a reasonable approach. And unless otherwise directed by the council, I would think as soon as we get that, that might be a good time for the mayor and I to get in the car and go see the county administrator and the chairman of the board.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Happy to do it. Tracy?
I was just going to ask about that. Doesn't it take a few years for them to actually put out the numbers? I know we're doing the census this coming year,
It does.
but I don't think we'll get the numbers until 14.
We get them earlier than that,
Yeah.
but it's certainly not in 2010.
Okay, so I didn't know if you wanted to look at the old census, but if you want to wait, that's okay too. I wanted to thank Senator Miller for coming out here and availing himself to citizens. He was here last week as well, and I saw a number of citizens came out to see him at the elementary school, where I asked him if he could do his best. I realized there's going to be cuts to the budget, but with the cuts of money that's coming in, I think it's really important that he also looks at cutting some of the mandates that we have on us for positions we have to have in the schools, and numbers of administrators or whatever, and how often we have to buy new books for the kids and those types of things. Because if they're going to say you have to do the SOLs and all that, then it would be great if they could fund it. And if they're going to cut the funds, then I think that cutting back on mandates would be a good idea. Also, I just wanted to remind the public that we have a number of public hearings coming up at the next meeting, so they should keep their eye out for that. And best wishes to Banks and his family.
Thank you, Tracy. Before Gene comments, we really need to prepare something to get to our legislative people. So if maybe it's by the end of the week asking too much, so we can put something in writing, get it to Randy, include your comments, Tracy, and also the 20% funding. We need to let those folks know that has an awful lot to do with whether or not the folks that were damaged this time, whether or not they'll be damaged in the next one. So I think it's significant. But if we can get that into Randy by the end of the week, we can get something out maybe by the first part of the following week and get it to those representatives that we have there in Richmond. Gene?
And kind of building on that, the 20% match, and I guess if I had to say anything to the citizens at the beginning of the year, it's sort of brace yourselves, because 2009 was a very tough year for all of us. For government, we normally see the worst of that about 6 to 8 months after the bottom. That's where we're seeing it. I think we're seeing it in the state government now. And despite the cuts, where we'll end up picking those up is on the backs of the localities. And it's good and bad. You have more say with the local councils to direct how we make those cuts up or don't make those cuts up. Some of those we won't really have a whole lot of choice about doing. Some of the school positions will be very difficult. Some of the school decisions in the next 6 months are going to be very difficult, both for the school board, who's going to have to deal with the budget allocation numbers, and for this council, who will be asked to fund various things from local dollars. So it's going to be a very tough budget year. Probably last every budget you feel like it's going to be the worst one, but I'll be quite honest with you, I think 2010 is going to be one to remember as far as the local budget. With that said, Randy, I really would like to see us get out in front with the school board early. And I think some of the things that we're going to need to be looking at is sharing administrative services to the most extent that we can. Payrolls, basically budget offices and the like. It's going to be maybe not something that we do long-term. It may be something that we do more of short-term. And I think that we need to get together, and I would say that probably one thing to do would be for each member of council, if they so deem, would be to send their list of suggestions of where we need to be looking, so that Randy has some time to do some studying. Because a lot of times we end up coming up to budget time, and boy, if we'd thought about this idea a few weeks earlier, then we could have looked at it, studied it, and said, yeah, it's good or not so good. But I think that we better start sending any suggestions that we have early, so he can say, yep, we can do this, or no, actually that's a negative cost driver. You didn't really take into account this or this or this. So I would say that the more work we do before the General Assembly on where we're going to look to cut, the better off we will be. Because the General Assembly is certainly going to balance the budget, and the localities are going to be looking, and all of us will be in the same boat, all the localities, at how to make it up. I think just like the population thing that was just suggested, that's there. It's probably out beyond this budget cycle, but it's there, and maybe getting that solidified is not a bad idea even now, even though it won't take effect this year. Other than that, one item on here that I am most pressing for is title information for the citizens of the city of Poquoson. Very interested in, and I appreciate, Randy, you and your staff looking at the cost of electronic title gauges. I know that for the city of Poquoson in these storms and northeasters, that title information is vital. And today we only have title information out of Sewell's Point and Gloucester Point, and Gloucester Point is not a manned station, so it's not constantly upfed. So, I encourage us to continue to look at that, even if it's two of these stations, one in Back River and one in Poquoson River. That sure allows the citizens ample opportunity to see what's going on and to know where their homes flood at what certain levels. So I think it's a safety item, and I think it's also something that we could share with NOAA. And I would encourage not only to look at the funding sources you've picked on there, but also NOAA themselves to see if they may want to participate. That's all I've got, Mr.
All right, Gene, thank you. Just a couple of things from me. Number one, one of our priorities as a council, and I know as a city, is to make sure that during these northeasters and these high tides that we get storms, et cetera, that we have at least a couple of ways out of this city. And during this last event, we certainly did not have two ways out of the city, and at times we didn't have any way out of the city. So with permission of council, Randy and I are moving forward. We met with Colonel Malloy, who is the base commander at Langley, and Lisa Rowe, who was tied up in Washington, sent her deputy to the meeting from NASA, and they are going to provide letters for us indicating to VDOT and to the General Assembly that we need to protect those folks as well. We have something like 12% of NASA's workforce lives here, and I don't think we've boiled down quite how many of the military live here, but a substantial amount. We will meet with VDOT this week, and we will push them just as hard as we can and try to have something done on it with Creek section quickly. It won't be a 4-lane highway. We just want to get it raised so that we can get our folks out here if we have to. And I don't think I was asking too much of VDOT or the General Assembly, quite frankly. So we'll be moving forward with that. Another special thanks to Public Works. The city is once again, at least as I see it, very clean. They did a super job, and I don't know that any Public Works group could compare to those. Okay, anything else that council needs for Randy or I, either one, to do in the coming week or so? If not, if you do, just give us a shout. And We will keep you apprised of the vice mayor's condition. In fact, I will try to make sure that we do that maybe every other day. I see him every day, but we'll try to do something every other day so that you guys know what his condition is. And again, I ask for prayers for Banks and certainly for his family. They need it at this time, and we just hope for better results every day. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? Any comments? Wayne, Judy, anything? Anybody? Okay, let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Wiggy, please.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Mayor Helsel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, ma'am, and we are adjourned.
That's another thing y'all couldn't have done the other night if they had passed the ordinance. You couldn't have